In this interview, we chat with Catherine Neumayr and her husband Luke, who are both seventh generation ranchers at family owned V8 Ranch, one of the world's largest Brahmin cattle ranches. They discuss what succession looks like when leadership transitions happen later than in many other industries, how they each found their way into the family business, and why balancing tradition and innovation is essential to preparing the ranch for its next chapter. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Luke. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Zach. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, same here. So I love talking to families that run ranches. We've actually done it before, and it was not something that I kind of realized was such a thing in the family business world before I started working here and doing what I do, and I just love it. It's fascinating to me. So for listeners who may not be familiar with V8 Ranch, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the business, how your family became involved with it, and then how each of you kind of found your way into roles there?
Sure. Well, our family business is called V8 Ranch, and we are a registered Brahman and Shorthorn cattle operation, and we're located on the Gulf Coast in Texas. We're about an hour from the city of Houston, an hour towards the Gulf, so a little closer to the beach than Houston. We have customers all over the world. This is all our family does. My dad always jokes and says, "We don't have any doctors, lawyers in the family
Or oil
or
wells.
oil wells. We just make it on."
Yeah.
And that's all that our family has known for many generations. I'm a seventh generation cattle rancher. And then here at V8 Ranch, there's four generations of our family that are still actively here on the ranch at this time. A lot of people always wonder, what is V8 named after? Now, what's interesting is when I'm telling people V8, I say it's V8 like the tomato juice.
Right.
It's actually the founder of V8 Ranch was a person named Howard Parker, and he was a Ford automobile dealer. And founded V8 in 1944 in East Texas in a town called Center. But interestingly enough, in 1971, Mr. Parker's eyesight was declining to the point where he couldn't visually see the cattle to mate and produce cattle that looked like he thought was typical of the brand. And
Yeah.
he cared so much about that visual appraisal of cattle that he decided he wanted to find another family to carry on what he had started. And
Yeah.
grandfather purchased the V8 Ranch cattle from Mr. Parker in 1971 and moved the herd here to our ranch where it's been since then. But it's named after the V8 Ford engine.
Gotcha. That is so fascinating and such a cool story. And I love stories where a family bought another business and made it their own and turned it into their own multi-generational family business. And so how did each of you, other than that, it's just part of what you do in this family, right? But how did you each kind of find your way into this work? Was there ever, for you, Catherine, was there ever an option otherwise?
I think what's interesting is being being a daughter in a ranching family. I don't think it was always expected that I would end up back part of the family ranch. As much as you hope that you would find someone to marry that wanted to be part of a family ranch. Uh,
Yep.
and so Luke always jokes and says that after he married me, graduated A&M, married me, Texas A&M. We both went to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Every other male member of Catherine's family, I came back on the ranch. You know, uh, my background, as far as what I enjoy doing is in marketing and graphic design and those things. And I'm able to do that within my role here at our family business. So I think it's kind of the modern evolution of a female rancher or a female person in agriculture. It's a kind of a mix of your typical what people think of at a ranch, what people are doing. I don't ride horses by any means, but there is a lot of outdoor work with the cattle. But I also still get to scratch that creative itch and do marketing and things like that make it really fulfilling work for me.
Yeah, and I definitely, in a little bit, I want to get more into that whole idea, what people imagine when they think of a ranch and what a ranch really is today. But Luke, Catherine mentioned it. You married into this family, and obviously you had an interest in this, and I know you have a background in this. So tell us me a little bit about how this all worked out.
Yes, so I'm an Indiana Angus boy,
Okay.
the resident Yankee, as my father refers to me down here. But Catherine and I actually met at a cattle show in South Dakota. And then I followed her from Indiana to South Dakota on and down to Texas A&M. And I'm still here today. But
Yeah.
like Catherine said, I was low man on the totem pole, and some days I still feel like I am. I got to do the jobs that maybe other people didn't want to do, and they're like, maybe the Yankee can go take pictures of these cattle for sale and try to sell something in Thailand when it's 1,000,000 degrees out here because just don't want to, and that's a job we can delegate to him. Um,
Right.
really, that's kind of how I guess my roles here have evolved. Is I started with smaller tasks, things that maybe people didn't want to do, or if I messed them up, it didn't matter that much. To where
Yeah.
it kind of show that I had the chops or not have the chops to do certain things, and then work
Yeah.
my way up and broaden my scope or skill set of things that I do. And it's very different now than what it was, years ago. And I feel like every single day there's something new that's coming along. For how many years did your dad bring the cattle?
Well, that kind of leads into an interesting thing that I wanted to share about our particular family business, which is,
Yeah.
But I wasn't done yet.
but it's it in a brief way. Um, in agriculture and cattle ranching, people don't generally retire in the family business. So, interesting is, in a normal person's career, I'm 42, Luke's 39.
39.
But we would be mid-career in our professional journey probably. But I wouldn't say that Luke's still low man on the totem pole by any means. But my father, who would be considered kind of at the top of the family business ladder right now, he didn't move into that role until he himself was 66 years old because his father was actively running the business and actively kind of the head honcho until he passed away. So in agriculture, family business, and cattle ranching, you know, there's no retirement age. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing is that, my dad didn't take the reins and become the official kind of boss of V8 until he was at an age when most of his contemporaries, they were retired. Along those lines, so one of the things Luke does now is brand the cattle, which is a required form of identification on cattle is a firebrand type of cattle that we raise, which are Brahmin. But that is a relatively new thing. Actually, when my dad kind of took the reins when he was 66 years old, I guess now that he was finally in that role, he decided he didn't like or really want to continue doing that. He'd pass it to you.
But so let's say for 66, not for 66 years, but 20,
Right.
a long time because his dad
Yeah.
for him until he couldn't do it. And we were out, it was like day 3 of branding. It was triple digit days. We were all hot. And towards the end of it, my role before I actually put the irons on the cattle was to hand the irons to Catherine's dad. That was my
Yeah.
taking from the branding pot, giving him to him, going back and forth. Well, I was going to give him one, and he just said, "Hey, you're branding these next ones. I'm done." And I thought,
Yeah.
excuse me? Well, like, for this, there was nothing. And I thought like maybe he might hold my hand a little bit through it and say, like, okay,
Yeah.
trace on the leg where this is gonna go. He just went and sat down and said, "You've got it."
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. But, so many jobs that I have now, back to the roles and bring the spotlight back on me. The role that I do now, that's really how I just kind of got these jobs was somebody didn't want to do it. And they said, "Hey, look, you go do this." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And being in a family business like we are, especially kind of marrying into this and not being here from day one, I'm not going to say, "Hey, let me brand the cows. Let me do this."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Whoever has done that for years continue to do that. But Catherine's dad is unique in a way that there's not a lot of teaching or coaching that goes on. You have to kind of learn by observation, and then it's, what's the expression, like what is like thrown to the fire?
Thrown
What
in the deep end, right? Yeah, thrown into the fire. Yeah.
baptism by fire, that's what I was looking for, and that's what
Yes.
it is, and
Yeah.
it's very nerve-wracking when the guy that has done it for years and is a very well-known person in this industry is sitting right behind me watching it happen, and then 5 head later gives some critique and says like, "Oh, well, you need to make sure you do this." I'm like, "You've been sitting there, why didn't you tell me, like, when I put it on there? Because these are permanent firebrands, they're not going anywhere." Uh,
Right.
that's, here I am knocking on 40's door. And I think most people that are our age have defined roles or maybe upper level management type positions. And that's just not the way that things work here until somebody decides they don't want them. And then, then we get them. And that's an ever evolving thing, how this ranch
Well,
works.
that was gonna be my question because that it is really interesting that that's how ranching works, although I think you probably would be surprised at how many family businesses in other industries also operate that way, where somebody just hangs on until they can't hang on anymore, and then the next person up finally gets a shot, right? And obviously, that's not probably the best way to approach succession planning. And so I wanted to get a sense, like, because we are going to talk about, as I mentioned before, how this is really sophisticated business. Not to just say just a ranch, but there's a lot to it. It's a real business. And so is there discussion and thought about, hey, maybe there should be not necessarily a retirement age, but more of a planned succession for generations going forward where maybe some of these things get passed down a little more gradually.
Yes, I think I think those discussions are had within our own family as far as
Yeah.
will affect the next generation, which would be our son. But things have changed so much in my lifetime. I think things are better than they were maybe when my parents were my age, as far as being in a family business. Um, but no, I think it's challenging. Just
Yeah.
so challenging. And little things within our family business that are always difficult. For example, if people were to say, like, well, what's your job title? I always joke and say family member at a family owned ranch. I mean,
Right.
um, even my dad, who I feel like is the front man of our business, the elder, for lack of a better term, he would never say he was the owner of that business. He would say he's the manager of that business, and even so, he'd say it with a little bit of not shame, but he would not want to offend any other family members, including me or Luke. He everyone
Yeah.
has to be so aware in a family business of how other members of the family feel or how they perceive your roles and things like that. And as far as the next generation, we're lucky. Just Luke and I, we just have one son, and so when I think one child, not just one son and other children, just one son, one. Um, so when I think about the future, I think, gosh, it's a little less complicated because there's just one that will pass what we have on to. But I certainly think it gets complicated,
Yeah.
especially when I think about when I'm 65 years old. I certainly want to be retired. Uh, in a way, I will no doubt still be ranching. And I have no doubt about that, but hopefully in a way where my son is able to, in his prime, uh, enjoy more of an ownership and management role in it. And I think that will be possible.
Yeah.
And
Well, oh, go ahead,
But
Luke. I'm sorry. I cut you
something
off.
else that I notice, is Catherine's mom is very ready to, I don't want to say retire, but have kind of that retirement life to where if they want to go to the beach or go to the mountains or simply go down to the ranch we have that's closer to Mexico with no Wi-Fi and sit down there and not be bothered for a week. Um,
Yeah.
very much looking forward to that and will kind of urge Catherine's dad to say like, hey, I think they can do this or somebody else, or you don't have to be there and do all of this. But that's all Catherine's dad has known since he graduated from A&M. He came back to the ranch and he's been here to this day. So I think a little bit in the back of his mind, he's thinking like, I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like got this firm hold on it. He's like, it's mine and not anybody else's. If he lets go of that, he doesn't know what else he's going to grab onto.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and that's something, we all live right here on the ranch. If I look down that way a few pastures, I see her parents' house, or can go back that way and see other family members. So it's it's one of those very nuanced things that it's a family business, and we all love this family business. But for those that have been in a family business, it has its own complete set of rules and tricky things to navigate. And agriculture is something that, I looked at some statistics the other day, and I think like the average age of a rancher in the United States is something like 62.1 years old. Like it's
Wow.
old. And that's where we are really kind of navigating things, because for us, we are trying to use more modern technology through Facebook, YouTube, things like that, to reach a younger audience and keep, this funnel full and keep sales coming in. But people that are our age in agriculture are not the decision makers. So we're
Yeah.
having to talk to sons that are going to go to their dad or their grandpa and say, "Hey, Pawpaw, I want to buy this Brahman bull from V8 Ranch that I saw a Facebook ad about." Um,
Yeah.
and that's something, as we're, trying to keep one foot in the past with what works and find other things that are going to work in the future. Even if it's long format blog posts that we write, it would be very easy to share those with Kat's dad via Google Doc. He could leave comments and do all of that. But we have to print out pieces of paper, put them on his desk. He'll get a red pen out and write notes, and we've got to do all of this. And that is something that I think is unique to agriculture, is that the decision-making age is much, much older than what other industries are.